The Alabama rain didn't just fall that night. It hammered the long driveway of Finn's mansion like the sky itself was angry. Water rushed along the pavement, splashing against Mia's ankles as she stood there, soaked from head to toe. Her clothes clung to her, heavy and cold, and both of her hands instinctively wrapped around her pregnant belly, trying to protect the life inside her. Her breath trembled, her heartbeat raced. Her world felt moments away from shattering. She whispered into the storm, barely audible over the thunder, "Please, not like this." Lightning split the sky, bright enough to show the desperation on her face. She blinked through the sheets of rain, staring at the closed front door. The same door Finn had walked through thousands of times with warmth, laughter, and love. But tonight he had only said 4 chilling words: "We need to talk." So Mia waited, cold, soaked, frightened, hoping this wasn't what her heart feared. The door stayed shut. Seconds stretched painfully. Another flash of lightning lit up the porch at the exact moment. The door swung open with a force that made Mia flinch. Finn stood in the doorway, jaw tight, eyes sharp, his entire body vibrating with a hurt she didn't understand. Rain blew against him, but he didn't seem to feel it. He stepped closer, his voice cracking with something between anger and heartbreak. "Mia, I know what you've been doing." The thunder roared behind her as his words struck harder than the storm itself. "Have you ever loved someone so deeply that their voice alone could steady you, but one misunderstanding could break you? Have you ever stood in front of a person you trusted with your whole heart, only to realize they had already accepted a story about you that wasn't true? Have you ever tried to explain yourself to someone who wasn't listening anymore?" That is where Mia stands now, in the rain, with her unborn child, facing the man she built a life with, a man who believes something she never did, a man whose hurt has closed the door she's desperately hoping will stay open. This is not just a storm outside. It is a storm inside 2 people who once held each other together. Mia took one careful step toward Finn, her hand lifting as if the smallest touch could calm the storm between them. "Finn, please," she whispered, water streaming down her face. "Let me explain. Whatever you think you saw." He moved back sharply, as if her hand carried heat, as if her presence alone hurt him now. The rejection struck her harder than the rain. Finn's throat tightened, and when he finally spoke, his voice trembled with a pain that didn't belong to the truth. It belonged to the lie poisoning him. "I trusted you," he said, breath shaking. "I loved you, and you lied to me." Mia's eyes widened, confused and terrified. "Finn, I didn't lie. I was at a client meeting. That's all. You know me." But the storm around them seemed to feed his anger. The rain intensified, until it slapped against both of them like thousands of tiny needles. Neighbors' lights flicked on across the street as voices murmured behind curtains. Mia tried again, holding her belly, begging him to look at her. Really look at her. "Finn, I'm carrying our child. Why would I?" "Mia, you need to leave. Right now." Her breath stopped. Lightning tore through the sky behind her, illuminating the shock on her face. The disbelief, the hurt, the way her knees almost gave out. She stumbled back, clutching her stomach, as the man who once held her heart now pushed her out of his. As Mia stood in the storm, rain pounding against her skin, one question echoed louder than the thunder. How did love reach this point? What could make a man turn against the woman he vowed to protect, especially while she carried their child? What lie was strong enough to twist a loyal heart into something unrecognizable? Because the truth is this: the cruelest part of that night wasn't the rain. It wasn't the argument. It wasn't even Finn's demand for her to leave. The real blow was discovering who crafted the lie and why they wanted Mia gone. That truth would hit harder than any storm Alabama had ever seen. But before we dive deeper into this unforgettable journey, welcome back to Mr. George Stories, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales. If you're new to this family, thank you for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button, because it helps us share stories like this on YouTube. Now, let's return to the night everything changed. Alabama had a rhythm that never rushed. It didn't matter if you were on a porch in Birmingham, sipping sweet tea, or walking through the polished streets of Montgomery. The state had a way of slowing everything down just enough for a person to hear their own heartbeat. For Mia, Birmingham wasn't just home. It was heart. Her world was built on warmth, laughter, and the kind of community that didn't need permission to show up at your door with a casserole and a story. She grew up surrounded by cousins who treated every backyard like a football field, aunties who had opinions about everything from waistlines to wedding dates, and neighbors who argued about barbecue sauce with the seriousness of national debate. Her days always held pieces of that world. The smell of smoked ribs floating through open windows, kids racing bicycles down cracked sidewalks, gospel melody drifting from the church 2 streets over, and the lively hum of people who believed family wasn't just blood, it was whoever stayed long enough to know your real laugh. Mia carried that energy everywhere she went, bright, grounded, unbothered by chaos, and chaos often came to her, especially in her work. As one of the most trusted event decorators in Birmingham, Mia was known for stepping into disorder and creating beauty from it. She could turn a plain church basement into something magical, make a small wedding feel like a grand celebration, or rescue a party that was seconds away from disaster. Her reputation wasn't built on perfection but on calm confidence. That steady voice saying, "Don't worry, I got it," even when nothing was going right. That same calm was what caught Finn's attention the night their worlds collided. Finn's version of Alabama stood in complete contrast. He grew up in Montgomery, a place where silence didn't mean peace. It meant wealth, where long driveways hid mansions tucked behind manicured hedges, and where dinner conversations sounded like carefully rehearsed speeches. His parents built a real estate empire long before he was born, and Finn was raised with expectations instead of choices. Everything in his world was polished. The halls of his family home, the quiet country club where business deals were whispered over lunch, the dinner parties filled with people who smiled politely while judging quietly. Finn learned early how to speak with restraint, walk with confidence, and hide stress behind a neutral expression. But Finn was not a loud billionaire. He was reserved, observant, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. His calm wasn't effortless. It was something he practiced, something he depended on to keep up with the demands of his world. That life left little room for surprise. But Mia, she was a surprise he never saw coming. Their first meeting happened at a fundraising banquet held in downtown Birmingham. Mia had been hired to decorate the venue, and the space was full of last-minute chaos. Exactly the kind she handled best. Boxes of supplies cluttered the floor. Ribbons lay tangled across tables, and a stack of tea lights toppled every time someone walked by too quickly. But there she was, standing in the middle of it all, hands on her hips, talking to herself in frustration. "Lord, if one more thing falls, I might just change my whole profession," Mia muttered under her breath. Finn had just walked in when she said it, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he laughed, a real laugh, one that startled even him. Not the polite, controlled laugh he used at business meetings, but something honest. Mia turned around sharply, eyes narrowing at the unexpected sound. She didn't recognize him immediately, which oddly made him relax. Her gaze wasn't filled with recognition or calculation. It was just a woman dealing with a long day, confused about who was laughing behind her. "Sorry," Finn said, raising his hands slightly. "Didn't mean to interrupt. That was just relatable." Mia blinked. "You're early," she said. "Rich folks don't usually show up while the work is still happening." He let out another small laugh. It wasn't meant to be funny, but the way she said it, light, honest, unfiltered, hit him with a warmth he didn't expect. "I'm Finn," he offered. "I know," she replied matter-of-factly. "You didn't need the introduction. But go on." There was no fear in her tone, no attempt to impress him. She was just herself, and that alone was enough to throw him off balance. He walked further in, looking around at the beautifully chaotic setup, and before he could stop himself, he asked, "How can I help?" Mia stared at him, like he'd just spoken in another language. "You? Help?" She raised an eyebrow. "You ever carried a ladder, Finn. He glanced at the tall ladder leaning unevenly against the wall. I can try, he said. You're brave, Mia said, shaking her head playfully. Brave or bored. He helped anyway, and within minutes, it became clear Finn had never carried folding chairs or adjusted floral arches in his life. At one point, he nearly dropped an entire stack of chairs, and Mia yelped so loudly her assistant peeked in from the hallway. Sir, that's not how chairs work, she said, laughing until she had to steady herself on the ladder. Finn laughed with her, embarrassed, but strangely happy. It was the kind of moment that stripped away business titles and wealth, a moment where two very different worlds stood side by side, just being human. But not everyone appreciated that moment. Unseen by both of them, someone lingered near the entrance, watching Mia with a look that carried quiet judgment, a look that suggested she didn't belong in Finn's world, a look that would become far more dangerous later. For now, though, Mia and Finn were too wrapped in their small discoveries, her humor, his sincerity, to notice the shadow of disapproval forming in the background. Their worlds had finally collided, and neither of their Alabamas would ever be the same again. After the banquet, Mia assumed the night would fade the same way most workdays did, with her kicking off her shoes, sending a few invoices, and falling asleep before her head fully touched the pillow. She didn't expect Finn to linger in her thoughts. She certainly didn't expect his name to pop up on her phone a week later, but it did. His message was short, polite, and almost too formal. Hi, Mia. This is Finn. I was hoping to get your advice about a decor issue for an upcoming charity gala. Mia stared at the text, her lips curving into a slow smile. Now, what would a man with a whole staff be asking me about centerpieces for? She whispered to herself. Still, she replied. They agreed to meet at a family-owned cafe in Birmingham, a place soaked in nostalgia, with the smell of fresh biscuits drifting between tables. It was the kind of cafe where people didn't rush, where the owners knew regulars by name, and where conversations tended to feel a little more honest. Mia arrived early, as she always did. She ordered lemonade, leaned back in her seat, and tried not to overthink why a billionaire was coming all the way from Montgomery for advice he didn't really need. When Finn walked in, the atmosphere shifted in a quiet, noticeable way. He wasn't flashy, but he carried a calm presence that drew attention. People glanced toward him out of curiosity. Some whispered his name. Others simply watched the way he scanned the room until his eyes landed on Mia. He relaxed instantly. Thank you for meeting with me, he said as he sat down. Mia raised an eyebrow. Finn, you don't need my help with decor. Be honest. He sighed, defeated immediately. I'm trying to be subtle. She smirked, and failing. The honesty broke the ice so cleanly that both of them laughed, settling into a conversation that flowed far more smoothly than either expected. They ordered food, talked about their childhoods, their ambitions, their mistakes, their families. Finn shared stories about growing up in Montgomery, strict schedules, forced etiquette lessons, and a home that looked perfect on the outside, but felt emotionally quiet on the inside. It was lonely sometimes, he admitted, running his finger around the rim of his cup. People were there, but not present. Mia nodded slowly. I get it. My house was the opposite. Too loud sometimes. You couldn't sneeze without 6 people asking if you needed help, but there was love in the noise. Finn admired the ease with which she spoke about her world. Mia admired the vulnerability she wasn't expecting from him. The cafe meeting turned into 2 hours. 2 hours turned into a desire to see each other again. Their next outing wasn't planned as a date, but the energy between them didn't leave much room for denial. They walked through a small art district in Birmingham after another meeting about business, though neither of them mentioned contracts once. On the sidewalk, Finn stopped and looked at her with genuine softness. You make things feel simple, Mia, he said quietly. You make things feel steady, she replied. Their connection felt effortless, surprising for 2 people who lived in such completely different worlds. Mia's life was filled with cookouts and church events. Finn's world revolved around boardrooms and networking dinners. But whenever they were together, the differences didn't feel like barriers. They felt like stories they could swap. Still, cracks began to appear. small ones that Mia initially dismissed. When Finn first brought her into his Montgomery circles, she noticed the way some people's eyes flicked over her with polite confusion. She wasn't dressed incorrectly or speaking incorrectly. She was simply not the kind of woman they expected to see by Finn's side. She was real, grounded, and didn't bend herself to fit their quiet judgment. At a fundraiser one evening, Mia overheard a whisper from two women near the bar. "She's interesting for Finn," one said. "He's always been charitable," the other replied with a light chuckle. It stung, but Mia held her own, smiling gracefully as she rejoined Finn. She wouldn't give strangers the power to dictate a love that felt real. Finn noticed her slightly lowered gaze and asked softly, "You okay?" She nodded. "Some folks talk too much." "I'm good." He squeezed her hand, a gesture that made everything else feel small. But not all parts of his world were harmless. One evening at a charity event, as Mia chatted with a young local entrepreneur about event design, Finn's longtime associate stood across the room watching closely. He narrowed his eyes in a way that didn't match the friendliness of the gathering. The man whispered to another guest, "She's always talking to someone. You better hope Finn knows what he's doing." The comment was tossed casually, but its intention was sharp. Mia didn't hear it. Finn didn't hear it. But that moment planted the first quiet seed of the lie that would later destroy so much. Still, in the beginning, love was stronger than any hint of tension. Finn would drive to Birmingham, just to walk with her in Railroad Park. Mia would visit Montgomery to help him unwind from long days filled with meetings that drained him emotionally. They laughed often. They opened up about insecurities. They learned each other's rhythms, hers full of color and movement, his full of structure and quiet resolve. On nights when the world felt heavy, Mia would sit cross-legged on Finn's living room rug and tell stories from her childhood, until he laughed so hard he couldn't breathe. On days when Mia questioned her own success, Finn would remind her of the impact she had on people's lives through her work. Love grew gently, in moments that didn't call attention to themselves. A cup of coffee left on a table, a message sent just because, a look held 1 second longer than necessary. But beneath the sweetness, a thin line of tension lingered, not between Mia and Finn, but around them. A few people in Finn's world watched silently, waiting for an opportunity to confirm their doubts about her. One person in particular watched too closely. One person noticed every smile, every conversation, every tiny moment between Mia and anyone else. One person believed they knew what was best for Finn, and that person's quiet resentments would eventually become the foundation of a lie powerful enough to tear everything apart. But for now, Mia and Finn only felt the warmth of a love that made two different Alabamas feel like one. Love didn't happen loudly for Mia and Finn. It didn't crash into their lives or demand attention. It grew quietly, in the space between long drives, shared meals, and the soft understanding that two people from different worlds could still find home in each other. Their wedding wasn't grand, but it was beautiful. Mia chose a small venue outside Birmingham, a place lined with oak trees and warm string lights, the kind that flickered softly as sunset gave way to evening. Finn arrived early, unusually early, as if his heart had dragged him there ahead of schedule. His suit was simple, clean, classic, the opposite of the extravagant outfits people in his circles usually expected. But that was the point. This day wasn't about show. It was about Mia. Finn watched anxiously as guests gathered, wiping his palms against his sides to hide how nervous he was. Mia's cousins teased him endlessly. "Big man scared?" one of them asked. Finn managed a stiff smile. "Very." But when the music started and Mia stepped through the doors, hair curled, gown flowing, face glowing with a softness he'd never seen before, everything inside him settled. His breath caught in his chest as if he'd never truly seen her until that moment. She walked toward him slowly, her eyes never leaving his. And when they finally met at the altar, Mia leaned in slightly and whispered, "If you drop the ring, Finn, I'll act like I don't know you." He laughed, a short, unsteady burst that loosened the tightness in his chest. Only Mia could calm him and tease him at the same time. Their vows were simple, promises of commitment, honesty, patience, and partnership. Finn's voice shook when he spoke, not from fear, but from the weight of everything he felt for her. Mia held his hands, steady and warm, wearing the same calm she brought into every room she entered. When the officiant finally announced them husband and wife, Finn pulled her close with a blend of relief and awe, kissing her, as if grateful for a future he once thought would never look like this. After the ceremony, they celebrated with a crowd that loved Mia deeply and tolerated Finn warmly. Her cousins danced until the floor shook. Her aunties cried like Mia was leaving for another country. Finn didn't stop smiling. He felt accepted, not for his wealth, but because he made Mia happy. For Mia, the wedding was proof that two different worlds could meet without clashing. At least, that's what she hoped. But not everyone celebrated without judgment. 2 tables away, Finn's longtime associate, the same man whose quiet disapproval had surfaced before, sat watching the couple with a gaze that lacked warmth. While most guests enjoyed the food, the music, the laughter, his eyes followed Mia's every movement. He masked it well, smiling politely whenever spoken to, but there was something stiff in the way he held himself, something uneasy, something that suggested he saw this marriage not as a union, but as a mistake. Mia didn't notice. Finn didn't notice. But shadows don't need attention to grow. Married life came with its own adjustments. Mia moved into Finn's home outside Montgomery, a house larger than anything she'd ever lived in. The hallways were long and quiet, and the rooms felt too still compared to the warm noise of her Birmingham upbringing. But she brought her energy with her. Colorful throw pillows, framed photos, homemade candles, little touches of comfort that softened the sharp edges of the mansion. Finn found himself pausing just to look at the changes, surprised by how much warmer the place felt with her in it. They found a rhythm quickly. Mia worked on events across the state, often bringing home funny stories about her clients. Finn handled real estate projects, sharing updates with her while they cooked dinner together. They leaned on each other, supported each other, balanced each other, and that balance began showing itself in deeper ways. One evening, Mia walked into the kitchen holding a small white box with shaky hands. Finn noticed immediately. "You okay?" he asked, stepping closer. Mia nodded slowly, eyes glassy. "I think you should open this." Finn opened the box and stared at the tiny pair of baby shoes inside. Soft, white, impossibly small. His eyes lifted to her face, searching for confirmation. "Mia, are you?" She nodded again, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes, Finn. We're having a baby." Finn's knees nearly buckled. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as tears filled his own eyes. Emotions flooded through him. Excitement, fear, hope, disbelief. He had wanted this quietly, secretly, long before he admitted it to himself, and now it was real. He lifted her, spinning her once in the middle of the kitchen, laughing through tears. She clung to him, laughing too, overwhelmed by how perfectly everything seemed to be falling into place. That night, they lay awake in each other's arms, whispering dreams for their child. How they'd decorate the nursery, the traditions they'd pass down, the kind of parents they hoped to be. Love felt strong enough to hold anything, but nearby, someone else was already shifting the pieces. Finn's associate, the same one who whispered doubts months back, had been watching quietly from the edges of their lives. He attended the wedding. He sent Finn a congratulatory message about the baby. But underneath the politeness sat a conviction he never voiced out loud. He believed Mia didn't belong in Finn's world. He believed she would change things. He believed Finn was too blinded by love to see it. So he watched. He waited. And he looked for the smallest opportunity to prove himself right. That opportunity was coming, not because of Mia, not because of Finn, but because the man carried his own biases, his own insecurities, his own notion of who a billionaire should love. He told himself he was protecting Finn. He convinced himself his intentions were noble, but intentions don't stop damage. And the quiet lie beginning to take shape in his mind would one day explode with the force of a storm, destroying the couple standing on the edge of a beautiful new life. For now, Finn and Mia slept peacefully, unaware of the shadow growing quietly behind them. Their joy was real. Their bond was strong, but the danger brewing near them had already begun its silent work. Their story was only warming up. The heartbreak was still a page away. The first real crack in their marriage didn't arrive with shouting or arguments. It arrived in silence, the kind of silence that creeps in unnoticed, but settles in places where trust once lived. It happened on a warm afternoon in Montgomery, just a month after Mia and Finn learned they were expecting. Mia had been working from home that day, sorting through swatches for a wedding job and humming along to a gospel song floating from her phone. She felt light, hopeful, excited about the baby growing inside her. Finn, meanwhile, was in the city, reviewing property contracts with his longtime associate, the same man who had watched Mia with thinly veiled criticism since their first meeting. Finn didn't know what the man wanted today. He just knew something felt off. "Everything okay?" Finn asked as they walked toward the parking lot. "You've been staring at me like you swallowed a question." The man exhaled, lowering his voice as if the truth he carried was heavy. "Finn, I didn't want to say anything until I was sure." Finn stiffened. "About what?" "Mia." Just her name, spoken in that tone, made something in Finn tighten. "What about Mia?" The man hesitated, glancing around before leaning closer. "The way she was acting at the last gala, I wasn't the only one who noticed. She spent a lot of time talking to that young guy. People were asking questions." Finn frowned. She was giving him advice on event design. "That's not what it looked like," the man replied softly, carefully, planting each word with intention. "It looked too close, too familiar." Finn shook his head. "Mia wouldn't—" "I know you want to believe that," the man interrupted, lowering his tone further. "But sometimes people surprise us. I'm telling you this because I care about you. You deserve to know what people are whispering." Finn fell silent. He didn't want to imagine anything that made Mia look unfaithful. His instincts told him the woman he married would never betray him. She was loyal, grounded, warm. She loved him without hesitation. But the way the man spoke, quiet, steady, certain, opened a door Finn had never expected to walk through. A door labeled doubt. "I'm not saying she did anything," the man continued, studying Finn's reaction. "I'm just saying, keep your eyes open, especially now that she's pregnant." That last sentence pierced Finn deeper than he expected. His jaw tensed and he muttered, "That has nothing to do with anything." "Doesn't it?" the man asked gently. Finn felt something cold settle in his stomach. The conversation ended soon after, but the discomfort lingered long after the man walked away. Finn stood by his car, gripping the edge of the door, replaying every interaction Mia had at the gala. Nothing had seemed strange. Nothing felt inappropriate. But now the man's words twisted those harmless memories into something murky. He hated how easily the whisper rooted itself. When he drove home, Finn tried to push the thought aside, but the seed had already been planted. It didn't grow fast, but it grew quietly, the way doubt always does. Mia noticed immediately that something in Finn felt different when he stepped through the door that evening. Not dramatically, nothing loud or unusual, just a slight shift, a heaviness behind his eyes, a slower response to her smile. She walked toward him, greeting him with a soft kiss on the cheek. "Long day?" "Something like that," Finn answered. Mia paused. She watched him for a moment, waiting for the warmth he usually offered without hesitation. But Finn simply loosened his tie and sat at the edge of the couch, staring at the floor as though trapped in thought. She sat beside him. "You okay, Finn?" He nodded without looking up. "Just tired." But Mia knew the difference between tired and troubled. Still, she didn't push. Not that night. Pregnancy had made her more emotional than usual, and she didn't want to project feelings onto him that weren't real. "Want me to warm dinner?" she asked gently. "Sure," he said, forcing a small smile. They ate quietly, and Mia filled the space with stories from her day, little things to lighten his mood. He listened, but something in his responses felt delayed, distracted, as if part of him wasn't fully there. Later, while folding laundry in their bedroom, she whispered to herself, "Something's wrong, but he'll tell me when he's ready." What she didn't know was that Finn had already begun replaying moments of her life through a distorted lens, wondering if there was something he'd missed, wondering if the whisper carried truth. He hated that the thought lingered. He hated that he couldn't shake it. And that night, long after Mia fell asleep beside him, Finn lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to doubt whisper in the quiet. He didn't know it yet, but the gentle shift Mia sensed was only the beginning. A wound had been opened, small, unseen, but deep enough to change the course of their lives. Finn woke the next morning with a heaviness clinging to him, the kind that didn't come from work or exhaustion. It came from the whisper he still hadn't shaken. He tried to bury it, telling himself he trusted Mia, that his colleague was exaggerating or misreading things. But doubt has a way of sticking where it doesn't belong. Mia was already in the kitchen when he came downstairs, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. The smell of warm biscuits filled the air, and sunlight peeked through the windows, painting the room with a quiet glow. She turned and smiled when she saw him, the same soft smile that once grounded him so easily. "Morning," she said brightly. "You want eggs, too?" He hesitated a second too long. "Yeah, eggs are fine." Mia paused, her smile fading just a bit. She wasn't the type to overthink one strange moment. But this wasn't the first strange moment. Finn had been distant since the day before, not cold, but withdrawn, as if part of him had pulled back into a place she couldn't reach. She made their plates and carried them to the table. Finn sat across from her, absent-mindedly tapping his fork against the plate. Mia watched him, waiting for him to meet her eyes. But every time he did, he looked away just as quickly. "Finn, talk to me," she finally said. "Did something happen at work?" He forced a small exhale. "Just tired. Extra meetings." But Mia didn't believe that. She didn't press him, though. She wanted her home to feel peaceful, not crowded with questions he wasn't ready to answer. Over the next several days, the distance only grew. Mia tried to include Finn in the nursery planning. Colors, fabrics, furniture placement. But he seemed distracted every time. He participated, but not fully. His responses were short, his smiles faint, and his warmth dimmed by something he couldn't put into words. Mia stood in the middle of the nursery one afternoon, holding a tiny onesie in her hands. She imagined their baby wearing it, giggling, grabbing at Finn's tie, learning to walk between the two of them. She sighed softly, rubbing her stomach. "I need you to talk to me, Finn," she whispered to herself. "Whatever this is, I can feel it." Meanwhile, Finn's internal struggle grew worse. The whisper, his associate planted, resurfaced every time Mia smiled, every time she took a phone call, every time she left the house for a meeting. It wasn't because he didn't trust her. It was because someone he trusted introduced the idea that he shouldn't. He hated himself for even entertaining it, but he hated the uncertainty more. One afternoon, Finn passed by the living room and heard Mia on the phone, not gossiping, not laughing, just speaking calmly with a client about a baby shower she was decorating. But that whisper returned. "She's always talking to someone." Finn closed his eyes, pressing his fingertips to his forehead. He knew he was being unreasonable. He knew he was letting someone else's opinion cloud his mind. But instead of checking his thoughts, he withdrew even more. Mia noticed. She noticed everything. That evening, as she prepped dinner, she called from the kitchen. "Finn, can you get the cornbread from the oven?" He didn't move at first. When he did, he seemed startled that she'd asked. "Sorry," he murmured, retrieving the pan with a distracted grip. Mia set her spoon down. "Finn, what's going on with you?" He swallowed hard, avoiding her eyes. "Nothing. I'm fine." "You're not fine," she said gently. "You're here, but you're not here." For a moment, his expression softened, like he wanted to speak, wanted to open up, wanted to say everything that had been burning a hole in his chest. But then the whisper returned, quiet, poisonous, persistent. He stepped back, emotionally. "I'm just dealing with a lot, Mia. That's all." His words weren't sharp, but they carried a distance she could feel all the way across the room. Mia blinked, her heart tightening. "If you're overwhelmed, you can talk to me. I don't want to feel like I'm bothering you in our own house." "You're not," he said quickly. "I promise." But promises lose strength when spoken without conviction. A few days later, Finn was at his office, pacing back and forth, as his mind wrestled with thoughts he didn't want. He felt ashamed of himself for questioning Mia, but he also felt trapped by uncertainty. So when his associate walked into the office unannounced, Finn tensed immediately. "I was hoping to catch you," the man said casually. Finn nodded stiffly. "What is it?" The man shut the door behind him and lowered his voice. "I didn't want to bring this up again, but I noticed something else." Finn's shoulders tightened. "What now?" The man sighed dramatically, as if burdened by the weight of concern. "I saw Mia downtown the other day. She was talking to that same young man again." Finn froze. His breath caught. His heartbeat stumbled. His mind reeled. "That's impossible," Finn whispered. "She said she was working from home." "Maybe she didn't want to say where she really was," the man replied calmly. "People hide things, Finn. Even people we love." The words hit him like a blow to the chest. The man continued, "I'm not saying she's done anything. I'm saying that at a time like this, with the baby coming, you need to be sure." Sure of what? Finn felt anger rising. Not at Mia, but at the not knowing, at the idea that something could be happening without him seeing it, at the feeling that maybe he'd been too naive. "Why are you telling me this?" Finn asked quietly. "Because I care about you," the man said. "You're not yourself lately. I thought you should know." And with that he left. But the damage stayed. Back at home, Mia was folding baby clothes when Finn returned. She looked up with her usual warmth, ready to share new fabric samples and tell him how excited she felt. But Finn's face was tense, his eyes shadowed by the weight of everything he'd been told. Mia paused. "Finn, you're scaring me. Talk to me." He forced a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm okay. Just tired." She knew it was a lie, but she didn't yet know the real lie that was tearing him apart inside. Mia reached for his hand across the bed. "I'm here, Finn. You don't have to carry whatever this is alone." He let her intertwine their fingers. But emotionally, he was already pulling away, and Mia felt it deeply. The space between them was no longer small. It was widening, quietly, dangerously. Finn woke before sunrise, long before Mia stirred beside him. He sat at the edge of the bed, with his elbows on his knees, hands pressed against his mouth, trying to steady a mind that had not rested in days. The whisper planted by his associate had grown into something loud, a constant pressure he couldn't silence. He stared at the floor, fighting the urge to check Mia's phone, to question her again, to demand answers to questions she had no reason to answer in the first place. He hated himself for even thinking about such things. He loved her. He trusted her. At least he believed he did. But the doubt had become a shadow he couldn't step out of. Mia shifted under the covers and softly rubbed her stomach before opening her eyes. When she noticed Finn awake and tense, she furrowed her brows with concern. "Finn?" she whispered. "You're up early." He forced himself to look at her. She looked peaceful, tired, warm. The woman he chose, the woman he loved, the mother of his child. But instead of comforting him, the softness of her expression made the doubt dig deeper. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Couldn't sleep." Mia had grown used to this answer. It was becoming his favorite shield, vague enough to avoid a conversation, familiar enough for her to stop pushing. But today, something in her heart urged her not to ignore it. She sat up. "Please, Finn. I'm not trying to pressure you, but this distance is hurting us. If something is wrong between us, tell me now so we can fix it together." For a moment, Finn almost confessed everything. The whispers, the comments, the fear he didn't want to admit he had. But then the shame hit him all at once. What kind of man doubts a woman like Mia? What kind of husband lets someone else's opinion rewrite what he knows in his heart? So he shook his head. "Nothing's wrong. You're imagining it." That was the wrong thing to say. Mia blinked, stunned. "I'm pregnant, Finn. I feel everything. And I don't imagine things when it comes to you." He swallowed hard. "I just need space. That's all." Her heart sank. Space? From her? Now. But instead of arguing, Mia nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll give you whatever you need." She didn't say it with anger. She said it with heartbreak. Later that morning, Mia grabbed her bag and prepared to leave for her prenatal appointment in the city. She had a client meeting scheduled afterward. A woman planning a baby shower who wanted Mia's help choosing colors and themes. Both errands were normal, routine, nothing unusual, but Finn didn't see it that way. When Mia walked into the living room with her bag over her shoulder, Finn was standing near the window, staring out at their quiet neighborhood as if searching for answers in the trees lining the street. "I'm heading out," Mia said gently. "Appointment at 11. Then I'll meet the client for the shower design." He nodded without turning around. Mia hesitated. She hated leaving him like this, but she also knew she couldn't make him talk before he was ready. "I'll see you this afternoon," she whispered before stepping out. At the office, Finn tried to distract himself with spreadsheets and contract negotiations, but nothing worked. His mind kept replaying his associate's words. She was talking to that same young man again. "People talk, Finn. Are you sure the child is yours?" He clenched his jaw, pushing the last sentence away with force. He knew it was cruel. He knew it was irrational, but the seed was already planted. And seeds do not ask permission before they grow. Around noon, as Finn stood outside his building trying to catch a breath of calm, his phone buzzed. He glanced down, expecting a reminder or a message from Mia about her appointment. Instead, it was a text from his associate. "If you still doubt what I told you, go to the cafe on Green Street. She's meeting that same man again right now." Finn froze. His first reaction was disbelief. His second was fear. His third, a surge of panic so strong his hands began to shake. "No," Finn whispered to himself. "She wouldn't." But doubt answered. "Are you sure?" Without thinking, without breathing, without stopping to remember who Mia truly was, he rushed to his car. Meanwhile, Mia sat in her doctor's office, smiling weakly as she looked at the ultrasound image the nurse had given her. The baby looked healthy, strong, vibrant, and the sound of the heartbeat, steady and full, brought tears to her eyes. She wanted to tell Finn. She wanted to call him instantly, share the joy, the reassurance, the relief, but he felt so far away lately. She told herself she would show him everything when she got home. The image, the notes, the gentle message from the doctor saying she was doing great. After the appointment, Mia walked 2 blocks to the cafe where she was meeting her client. It was a small place with outdoor seating, the kind of spot where decor ideas flowed easily because the environment was cozy and warm. Mia greeted the mother-to-be, sat at their table, and began discussing theme options. She was unaware of the storm racing toward her. Finn drove fast, too fast, weaving through Montgomery traffic with a desperation that clung to his chest. Every red light felt like another moment of betrayal building in his mind. Every car slowing him down felt like another barrier between him and the truth he feared. By the time he turned onto Green Street, his pulse was pounding in his ears. His eyes searched the cafe patio immediately. Then he saw her. Mia sat at a small round table, smiling gently as she held color swatches in her hand. A man stood beside her, the young entrepreneur she had spoken to at the gala, helping her rearrange items on the table so she could better visualize a baby shower layout. To Finn, it didn't look like a consultation. It looked like intimacy. It looked like confirmation. His stomach dropped, his vision blurred. His entire world narrowed to the sight of his pregnant wife, sitting with someone he'd already been warned about. He didn't stop to think. He didn't breathe. He didn't wait to hear explanation. He simply reacted. Finn stepped out of his car, slamming the door behind him. His footsteps were sharp, fast, echoing across the sidewalk. Mia noticed him approaching and smiled instantly, relieved to see him. But the smile disappeared the moment she saw his face. "Finn?" she whispered, standing slowly. "What are you?" He cut her off, voice tight and trembling. "Really, Mia? Here? With him again?" She blinked hard, confused. "Finn. He's a client." "Don't lie to me," he snapped, loud enough to draw attention. Her heart cracked in her chest. "Finn, I would never—" He stabbed a finger toward the man. "Stay away from my wife." The man raised his hands in confusion, backing up, unaware of the story Finn had already believed. Mia's voice trembled. "Finn, please. You're misunderstanding everything. But Finn was no longer listening. He had crossed the threshold from doubt into conviction, and the breaking point had finally begun. Finn's footsteps hit the sidewalk like someone trying to outrun his own fear. The cafe patio was alive with people enjoying their lunch. But the moment he saw Mia sitting with the young entrepreneur, everything else disappeared. The world narrowed into a single image, her leaning over color swatches, her smile soft, her posture relaxed. To Finn, poisoned by the lie whispered into his ear, it looked like betrayal. He didn't see the client's notebook on the table. He didn't see the sample decor pieces spread neatly between them. He didn't see the calm professionalism in Mia's gestures. He saw what someone else wanted him to see. Mia looked up, her face lighting with recognition and relief. "Finn? Baby, what are you doing here?" Her voice was warm, hopeful. But Finn didn't hear that. He heard accusation in every sound around him. He took a step closer, shoulders tense, jaw tight. "Mia? Really? Again?" The confusion on her face appeared instantly. "Again? Finn, what are you—" "You said you had an appointment," he snapped, gesturing sharply toward the man beside her. "But here you are, with him." The young entrepreneur's eyes widened. I think this is a misunderstanding." Finn cut him off with a glare. "Stay out of this." Mia stood slowly, one hand instinctively resting over her stomach as if shielding the child inside her. "Finn, please lower your voice. You're scaring me." "You're scared?" Finn said, his voice rising with a mixture of anger and wounded pride. "What am I supposed to be, Mia? Calm? Like nothing is going on?" She blinked hard, her throat tightening. "Nothing is going on. This is my client. We're discussing her baby shower." Finn's eyes flicked to the table. The papers, the samples, the color swatches. Logic tried to intervene, but emotion won. "You were seen with him before," he muttered. "People noticed." Mia's breath caught. "People? Finn. Who told you that? Who is saying these things about me?" Finn opened his mouth to answer, then shut it. He didn't want to admit he had been listening to someone he shouldn't. He didn't want to reveal how easily he had let doubt take control. Mia took a step closer. "Finn, talk to me. Tell me who said something. Tell me what you think you saw." "What I think I saw," he repeated, voice cracking. "Mia, I saw you." "No," she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "You saw what someone else wanted you to believe." The young entrepreneur backed away from the table slowly, discomfort thick on his face. His presence only seemed to push Finn further into the emotional corner he'd built around himself. Finn shook his head, his voice trembling. "I didn't want to believe it. I told myself you were loyal, that you wouldn't what?" Mia cut in, her voice rising not in anger but in breaking despair. "Wouldn't love you? Wouldn't build a home with you? Wouldn't carry your child?" Her words hit Finn hard, but instead of pulling him back to clarity, they stirred the turmoil inside him. "I trusted you," he whispered. Mia held her chest, feeling her heartbeat slam painfully against her ribs. "And I trusted you," she said. "But right now your believing lies over the woman who shares your home, your bed, your life." The environment around them shifted. Conversations at the cafe began to fade as onlookers sensed tension rising dangerously between the couple. A waiter paused mid-step, unsure whether to intervene or stay clear. Finn clenched his fists. "I saw enough." "You saw nothing," Mia replied softly. "Not the truth." Pain flickered in Finn's eyes, a brief flash of uncertainty, but the damage had already twisted too deeply. He wasn't seeing Mia clearly anymore. He wasn't seeing the moment. He was seeing the lie he had carried for days. Mia, seeing Finn's expression crumble into something cold, felt her knees weaken. "Finn, please, listen to me. For our baby, at least." But Finn whispered something she never expected. "I don't know if the baby is mine." The world stopped. The cafe noise fell silent. The air thickened in her lungs. Mia's hand tightened around her stomach as tears spilled freely down her face. "Finn?" Her voice cracked into a whisper. "How could you say that to me?" He looked away, unable to face the devastation he had caused. People were staring now, But Mia's world had already collapsed inward. She stood there trembling, not because of the accusation alone, but because it proved something deeper. Finn was gone, not physically, but emotionally. Lost inside a lie she couldn't see or understand. "Finn," she whispered again. A final plea. "I love you. I have never betrayed you. Please, believe me." But Finn stepped back, and that step, small, quiet, barely noticeable, was the moment Mia's heart fractured completely. The confrontation had begun, but the storm was only gathering strength. Mia didn't remember leaving the cafe patio. One moment, she was staring at Finn in disbelief, and the next, she was stepping onto the sidewalk, the sky shifting above them like it sensed the chaos brewing between their hearts. The air felt heavy, too still, too expectant. Finn followed her, his steps sharp, uneven, fueled by anger he couldn't understand and hurt he couldn't control. "Don't walk away from me, Mia," he said, his voice low but trembling. She turned slowly, rain beginning to dot her cheeks, mixing with the tears already there. "I'm not walking away. I'm trying to breathe." Finn's chest rose with a harsh breath. "You won't even admit it." "Admit what?" Mia cried. "Finn, tell me what you think I've done. Say the words out loud so you can hear how wrong they sound." He hesitated, because deep down, part of him knew the words were heavier than the evidence he had. But the lie, planted, fed, repeated, had grown roots in his fear. "You were seen with him before," he said, his voice cracking. "People noticed. People told me." Mia shook her head. "People or one person? Who told you this? Who wants to break our home?" "Because it isn't me, Finn." He didn't answer. He couldn't. She stepped closer. "Finn, look at me, and tell me you truly believe I'd betray you, that I'd carry another man's child, that everything we built means nothing to me." Finn swallowed hard, unable to meet her eyes. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the growing crowd near the cafe windows. Customers had drifted toward the glass, watching with quiet concern, though no one stepped forward. Mia felt exposed, not because of the people watching, but because of how unsteady. Finn looked like he was slipping away from her, and he didn't even realize it. "I went to my appointment today," Mia said softly. "Do you want to know what the doctor said? The baby is healthy, strong, growing well. I was going to show you the ultrasound picture when I got home." He froze, his breath stilled, but instead of softening, his expression tightened again, confusion warring with suspicion. "And then what?" Finn asked bitterly. "Go meet him afterward and pretend it was all business?" "Finn!" Mia's voice cracked. "This is work. This is my career. You used to admire how hard I worked." Rain began falling harder, hitting the pavement with sharp, steady taps. Dark clouds rolled in faster than anyone expected, dropping the temperature along with them. People hurried to grab their umbrellas, but Mia and Finn stood in the open, bare, unshielded, hurting. "You lied to me," Finn said suddenly, the words bursting out before he could gather them. "You told me you were home that day, but you weren't. You were out with him." Mia stared at him, stunned. "I was running errands for a client. I showed you the receipts, the sketches, the schedule." She shook her head in disbelief. "Finn, you're creating a world where I'm guilty of something I've never even considered. Then why were you seen with him more than once?" Finn shot back. "Because he hired me," Mia shouted. "He hired me to design his sister's shower." "Finn, you know what I do. You know I meet people, talk to people, collaborate with people. That's my work." The rain grew heavier, flattening Mia's hair against her face, soaking her clothes. A cold wind swept through the street, carrying fallen leaves across the pavement. Finn's breaths came faster. Mia stepped closer, desperate to reach him. "Finn, listen to me. I love you. I've chosen you every single day. I've never given you a reason to doubt me." But he stepped back. That same step from earlier, the one that broke her heart, now expanded into something unbearable. His voice lowered, shaky but firm. "I don't know if I can believe you." Mia's hand covered her mouth as if she needed to hold in the sob threatening to escape. "Finn, Why are you doing this to us? She whispered. Why are you letting someone else rewrite the truth about your wife? Another flash of lightning lit up the sky, followed by a rumble that echoed through the buildings. The storm was no longer approaching. It was here. Rain poured down in sheets, drenching both of them. Finn's shirt clung to his chest. Mia wrapped an arm around her stomach, shielding her belly instinctively from the cold. Finn, please, she said, her voice trembling. Let's go home. Let's talk where it's quiet, where it's just us. Please. Don't do this here. But Finn was too far gone inside the lie. The words he said next sliced through her like the rain could never do. You need to leave, Mia. Her world stilled. What? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. You need to leave, Finn repeated, louder, stronger, as if saying it twice would steady him. I can't trust you. Not right now. Mia's face collapsed in heartbreak, her body folding slightly as she clutched her stomach with both hands now. Leave? She echoed. Finn, I'm pregnant. I'm your wife. You're asking me to walk away in the rain, in the street? Over a lie someone told you? He looked away, jaw clenching, refusing to let himself waver. Finn, her voice cracked. Look at me. Look at the woman you love. He didn't. He couldn't, because if he did, the lie might break. And instead of breaking the lie, he broke her. The rain hammered the ground around them, washing down the street like the sky itself was mourning the moment. Finn whispered one last time, not out of cruelty, but out of confusion he could no longer control. Please go, Mia. Her heart split at the sound of those words. The argument was over. The storm was not. The rain had turned into a relentless downpour, hammering the pavement with a force that sent people scrambling under awnings and storefronts. Streetlights flickered on early, as if the sky had forced them into night before their time. But Mia didn't move, not right away. She stood frozen, her breath trembling, her clothes soaked until they clung to every curve of her body. Water streamed down her cheeks, mixing with tears she couldn't stop if she tried. Finn stood several feet away from her, stiff, drenched, and looking like a man who had convinced himself this heartbreak was necessary. His eyes refused to meet hers, even as her silence stretched painfully between them. Finn, Mia whispered, voice shaking so hard the name nearly broke apart on her tongue. Please tell me you don't mean this. He didn't answer. He didn't lift his head. He didn't offer even the smallest sign of doubt. Instead, he repeated the sentence that had already shattered her. You need to leave. A quiet crack split through Mia's heart. She felt it, not metaphorically, but physically. A tightening in her chest, a sinking heat in her stomach, a pressure rising behind her eyes that felt too heavy to bear. You are sending your pregnant wife into a storm, Mia whispered, over a lie. A lie someone fed you. A lie you never asked me about. Her voice broke. Do you know how much that hurts? Rain dripped down from her hair as she stared at the man she built a home with, the man she trusted with her soul, the man who once held her belly and whispered dreams about their child's future. He remained still, too still, like if he moved, everything inside him might fall apart. A flash of lightning tore across the sky, casting a white glow on Finn's face, long enough for Mia to see a flicker of regret, confusion, something buried beneath the anger. But it left his expression as quickly as it came. Mia looked down at her stomach, gently rubbing where the baby kicked softly, as if sensing the distress in its mother. She felt the message in her heart. This isn't safe anymore. This moment isn't safe. I have to protect us. Her chin trembled. Okay, she whispered, barely audible. If you want me to walk away, I'll walk away. She wasn't agreeing out of acceptance. She was agreeing because forcing herself to stay in front of him, while he believed the worst hurt more than the rain, more than the cold, more than the humiliation. Finn finally looked up, and when he saw her turn, slowly, painfully, as if tearing herself away from her own heartbeat, something inside him faltered. Mia! His voice cracked. She stopped, shoulders shaking, but she didn't turn back. Don't, she whispered. Don't say my name now. Not after you pushed me out without asking for the truth. The street was nearly empty now. Cars rushed by in the distance. The city felt quieter, despite the storm, as if the world paused in mourning with her. Mia took her first step, then a second, then a third. Each one felt heavier than the last. Her shoes splashed in puddles as she made her way down the sidewalk, clutching her stomach with one hand, her other hand gripping her soaked purse tightly. The wind whipped at her hair, blowing strands across her face, but she didn't stop to fix anything. She didn't stop at all. Behind her, Finn stood frozen in place, watching the woman he loved disappear into the storm. The same storm he had forced her into, guided by nothing but fear and poison planted in his mind. His chest tightened, his throat closed. For a moment he almost ran after her, but he hesitated, and that hesitation became the defining moment of their marriage. Mia turned toward the main street, feeling her legs weaken under her. She reached out, gripping a street lamp for balance as a sudden cramp seized her side. Not severe, but enough to scare her. "Please." "Not now," she whispered, rubbing her stomach. The baby shifted gently, reassuring her, reminding her that she wasn't alone. She closed her eyes, allowing a few deep breaths to steady her racing heart. Rain streamed down her neck, soaking into her collar, chilling her to the bone. Every part of her felt vulnerable. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. She pushed herself to keep walking. A passerby glanced at her with concern, but Mia quickly looked away. She didn't want pity. She didn't want strangers asking questions she wasn't ready to answer. She just needed to move, to get anywhere but here. Her mind raced with the memory of Finn's accusations, the disbelief in his eyes, the suspicion in his voice, the hurt in every word he threw at her. But the moment replaying the loudest was the one where he stepped back. That single step had been the echo of something deeper. He no longer saw her as safe. He no longer saw her as his partner. He no longer saw them. And that truth cut deeper than his accusation. Back at the cafe, Finn stood drenched in rain, staring at the space where Mia had stood. The anger that had fueled him moments earlier drained out of him slowly, leaving behind a strange hollowness. He wiped rain from his eyes, though he couldn't tell if it was water or something else. What have I done? The thought pushed itself to the front of his mind, but he shoved it back down, clinging to the only thing that made his actions feel justified. She lied, he whispered to himself. She lied, didn't she? But even he heard the doubt in his voice. His breathing became uneven. He ran a hand over his face, soaked hair falling over his forehead. He looked at the door Mia had disappeared through minutes earlier. For the first time since the confrontation began, he felt fear. Real fear. Not of betrayal, but of the possibility that he'd just destroyed something irreplaceable. Someone irreplaceable. Finn stumbled back toward the mansion, his steps heavy, his clothes clinging to him, his mind spinning in ways he couldn't control. By the time he reached the house, he was shaking. Not from the cold, but from the weight of what he'd just done. He collapsed onto the living room couch, staring at his trembling hands. He didn't feel victorious. He didn't feel justified. He didn't even feel angry anymore. He felt empty. He felt the kind of regret that arrives too late. He felt the echo of Mia's devastated voice. "Do you know how much that hurts?" Finn squeezed his eyes shut. He had no idea, not yet, how deep that hurt would go. The rain didn't ease up as Mia continued down the street. If anything, it fell harder, turning the sidewalks into shallow rivers that splashed beneath every step she forced herself to take. Her soaked clothes clung to her skin, heavy and cold, but she kept her arms wrapped protectively around her stomach, shielding her baby from the worst of the storm. Her breath came out in short, uneven bursts. She felt exhausted, terrified, and heartbreakingly alone. Each raindrop sounded like a reminder of what she had just lost, or at least what had been torn away from her without warning. Finn's voice still echoed in her mind. "You need to leave." It didn't matter how many times she repeated it in her head. It didn't matter how she tried to interpret it. It didn't soften. He had meant it. Her throat tightened again, and she felt a sob rising, but she swallowed it back. Crying too hard would tighten her chest, make her breathing worse, and she couldn't afford that. Not now. Not when she had someone growing inside her, depending on her strength. She whispered softly, "I'm here, baby. I'm here. Mama's not going anywhere." Lightning flashed again, and Mia flinched. She looked around desperately for shelter. Businesses were closing early because of the storm, their lights dimming one by one. Cars splashed past her, some slowing as if considering stopping, some speeding through puddles without noticing her at all. After several blocks, she spotted a small awning outside a closed bakery. It wasn't much, but at least it shielded her from the worst of the rain. Mia stepped beneath it, leaning against the cool brick wall as another shiver ran through her. Her hair dripped onto her shoulder. Her shoes sloshed when she tried to shift her weight. Her fingers were stiff from the cold, but none of that compared to the ache in her chest. She slid down slowly until she was sitting on the wet concrete beneath the awning. She didn't care about the discomfort. She didn't care that she was drenched. She needed a moment, just one moment, to breathe. Her hands trembled as they rested on her belly again. "This shouldn't have happened," she whispered. "Your father, he wasn't like this. He loved us. He trusted us." She closed her eyes as tears streamed down her cheeks. "I don't know who he is right now." For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine something different. Finn running after her, grabbing her hand, pulling her back into his arms, telling her he was wrong, that he believed her, that he needed her. But he hadn't. He let her walk away in the storm. He watched her leave, and that truth cut deeper than every harsh word he said. Mia wiped her face with the back of her hand, though it accomplished nothing. The rain replaced every tear instantly. Her heart clenched as she remembered how excited she had been earlier that day at the doctor's appointment. The sound of the heartbeat, the picture she had planned to show Finn, the joy she imagined sharing with him. That joy had died the moment he accused her of carrying someone else's child. A fresh wave of pain hit her so hard she bent forward, wrapping her arms around her stomach as if protecting her baby from the heartbreak itself. "I'll take care of you," she whispered fiercely, even through tears. "I won't let anyone hurt us. Not even your father. Not like this." She stayed under the awning until the wind shifted sideways, sending cold sheets of water across her legs. She knew she couldn't remain there all night. She needed somewhere warm, somewhere dry, somewhere safe. She thought of her mother's house in Birmingham, but that was hours away. Too far to walk, too far to risk driving in this condition, too far for her body, already exhausted. Her vision blurred as she weighed her options. She couldn't go back to the mansion. Not tonight. Not after what Finn said. Not after the way he looked at her. Walking back into that house would feel like walking into the storm all over again. She pushed herself off the ground, legs trembling. She took several deep breaths, steadying her resolve. "I'll find a way," she whispered. "I always do." As she stepped back into the rain, the storm felt different. Not lighter, but something she was willing to push through. Not because she wasn't hurting, but because she had someone to protect. Each step felt slow, heavy, but purposeful. She rounded a corner, shielding her belly again as the wind whipped past her. Her mind kept replaying Finn's accusations, the disbelief in his eyes, the way he let the lie speak louder than her voice. But with every painful memory, another truth formed inside her. She could not return tonight. She would not cry on the doorstep he closed on her. She would not weaken herself in front of someone who refused to see her. Tonight she would survive. Tonight she would protect her baby. Tonight she would walk alone, but with strength. A streetlight flickered above her as she kept going, her shadow long and wavering as she moved deeper into the storm. Her heart was breaking, but her resolve, it was hardening. She whispered one last promise into the night. "We won't go back. Not until he remembers who we really are." And with that, Mia disappeared into the storm. Not defeated, but determined. Finn didn't sleep. He tried. He lay on the bed, turned off the lights, listened to the storm beating against the windows. But sleep refused to come. Each time he shut his eyes, he saw Mia's face in the rain. Not angry, not defensive, just hurt. Deeply, deeply hurt. Her voice kept echoing. Do you know how much that hurts? Finn pressed his palms against his eyes until stars sparked behind his eyelids. He felt sick, like his stomach was turning inside out, like his chest was tightening with every breath. The house, usually warm and full of quiet comfort, felt cold and hollow without Mia in it. Lightning lit up the room for a second, casting a brief shadow of the crib they had assembled together. Finn stared at it. Frozen. A crib. A future. A family. All threatened because of one whisper he hadn't even confirmed. He rubbed his hands over his face as a heavy exhale shook his body. He had always been the steady one. Logical, grounded, calm under pressure. But tonight, he felt like a stranger inside himself. He felt like he had lost control of something he didn't know how to take back. Hours passed. The storm softened. Dawn began creeping faintly through the blinds. But Mia did not come home. That fact alone made his chest tighten all over again. By morning, Finn couldn't sit still any longer. He kept pacing the kitchen, checking the front door, glancing at his phone even though there were no messages from Mia. He hated the silence. He hated not knowing where she was. He hated what he had said to her. You need to leave. The words tasted bitter now, like something poisonous he had spit out without thinking. He replayed the moment at the cafe, her confusion, her pleading, the desperation in her voice as she tried to explain. None of it matched the version of events he had convinced himself of. If she were hiding something, wouldn't she have been defensive? Wouldn't she have lied? Instead, she had looked shocked, broken, completely blindsided. Finn gripped the edge of the counter, jaw tightening. Why didn't that matter to him in the moment? Why didn't he stop and listen? His mind answered immediately, because someone else had already planted the doubt. Someone who claimed to care, someone who insisted he was only trying to help, someone who kept pushing the same narrative until Finn's mind bent under the pressure. Finn swallowed hard. Was it all manipulation? The longer he sat with the question, the more uneasy he became. A little after 9 a.m., Finn left the house. He didn't know where he was going at first. He just drove, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only stable thing he had left. But halfway down the road, his instincts led him toward the city. Not to find Mia. He wasn't sure she would want him near her, but to retrace yesterday's steps, to see the truth with clear eyes instead of clouded fear. He parked a block from the cafe, his breath heavy as he stepped out of the car. The storm had passed, leaving puddles and damp sidewalks behind. The sun was trying to push through gray clouds, giving the morning a hesitant brightness. The cafe had just opened for the day. A few workers cleaned tables outside while others prepped inside. Finn approached with a tight jaw and a heavy heart. A young woman wiping down outdoor chairs looked up. Morning. Can I help you? Finn cleared his throat. Yesterday, there was a woman sitting here. She was meeting someone about a baby shower. Did you see them? The worker nodded. Yeah. She had these little color cards and notes spread out. They stayed for a while. She seemed really sweet. Finn froze. His pulse quickened. Do you know who she was talking to? He asked quietly. The worker shrugged. Looked like a client. They weren't sitting close or anything. Just going over design stuff. Finn's chest tightened. His breath hitched. Not sitting close. Client? Design materials. Everything Mia said, everything he refused to hear, was confirmed by a stranger with no reason to lie. His heart sank as reality hit him hard. He had been wrong. He had been terribly, painfully wrong. He sat down at the same table Mia had used. His legs felt numb beneath him. He looked across the empty chair opposite his and imagined her sitting there, smiling, working, just doing her job. And he had turned it into betrayal. For what? For nothing but a whisper, a rumor, a manipulated detail fed to him by someone with motives he still didn't understand. His hand shook slightly as he rested it on the table. What have I done? He closed his eyes. For the first time in years, Finn felt something he rarely experienced. Fear of losing something he couldn't replace, someone he couldn't replace. A server came outside to arrange menus. She glanced at Finn and recognized him instantly from the previous day. Are you okay? She asked gently. Finn swallowed but didn't answer. She hesitated before adding, Your wife seemed really upset yesterday. She left in a hurry. The word wife hit him like a blow. He whispered, voice strained, I know. She left some notes behind. the server said, pulling a small folder from her apron pocket. We kept them, in case she returned. Finn reached for the folder with trembling fingers. Inside were sketches, sample lists, and handwriting he knew as well as his own. The project she worked on. The project he had accused her of using as a cover story. The proof was right there. He felt the weight of guilt slam into him all at once. He pressed his thumb against her handwriting, the ache in his chest spreading like fire. She had been telling the truth. Every word, every explanation. He was the one who had lied. To himself. He left the cafe with unsteady steps, heading back to his car on autopilot. He didn't even turn the engine on at first. He just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. The truth was clear now. Painfully clear. Mia had done nothing wrong, not one thing, and he had thrown her out. He slammed his palm against the wheel, letting out a quiet, angry breath. Not at Mia, not even at the storm of emotions inside him. At the man who set this in motion, the one who whispered, the one who planted the doubt, the one who pushed the lie, until it consumed Finn entirely. The first spark of anger, not at Mia, but for Mia, lit inside him. He whispered through clenched teeth, I need answers. And he knew exactly who to confront. Finn didn't even remember half the drive to his office building. He only knew that his chest felt tight, his jaw locked, and the folder containing Mia's forgotten client notes sat beside him like a physical accusation, a reminder of how wrong he'd been, a reminder of what his anger had cost. The moment he pulled into the private parking garage, he didn't go to his office. He didn't stop for coffee. He didn't greet a single employee who offered a polite good morning. He walked straight to the executive elevator and pressed the top floor button with more force than necessary. The doors closed, and the silence inside the lift was suffocating. Every floor the elevator passed seemed to squeeze his lungs tighter. By the time the elevator dinged, Finn's heart was pounding. He stepped out, and there he was, the man who had whispered the poison, the man who had warned him twice, the man who had planted seeds until Finn believed they were facts. The man stood outside a conference room, reviewing documents. When he noticed Finn approaching, he smiled gently. Too gently. Finn, he said warmly, you're here early. Everything all right? Finn stopped in front of him, chest rising and falling. For a moment he said nothing. He studied the man's expression, his easy posture, the confidence in his voice, a voice that had guided him straight into disaster. Finn's voice was steady when he finally spoke, but the steadiness came from something sharp, not calm. Tell me exactly what you said about Mia. The man blinked. What do you mean? Finn's jaw tightened. Don't play games with me. Tell me exactly what you told me about my wife. The man hesitated. Just for a second too long. Well, I only told you what I saw, he replied. I told you she was getting close to someone. I told you people were talking. I was trying to help. Help? Finn cut in. Help me lose my wife? The man stiffened. That's not fair. Finn stepped closer. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't losing control. But the firmness in his voice was unmistakable. Did you see anything inappropriate between Mia and that man at the gala? The man lifted his chin. Finn. She was laughing with him, standing close. I thought you'd want to know. Finn's eyes narrowed. Standing close? That's your evidence? I didn't say it was proof, the man replied quickly. I said it was concerning. Finn held up the folder containing Mia's notes, the ones she left behind at the cafe. Did you know she was planning a baby shower? Did you know that man hired her? Did you know they were discussing layouts and color choices? The man's face faltered, just for a moment, and that was all Finn needed. You didn't know, Finn said sharply. You didn't know anything. And instead of asking questions, you made assumptions. The man's voice cooled. I was trying to look out for you. That woman. Finish that sentence, Finn said quietly, dangerously. The man swallowed. She's not from our world, Finn. You know how people talk. I didn't want you to look foolish. Finn's expression turned cold. So you decided to ruin my marriage instead. I never said ruin, the man protested. I said be cautious. You said a lot more than cautious, Finn replied. You said she acted like a woman hiding something. You said other people saw it too. You told me to question my wife's loyalty, and when I didn't react enough, you pushed harder." The man's eyes darted away. Finn stepped even closer, lowering his voice. "Why? Why would you lie about Mia?" There was a long silence. Then the truth spilled out, not with guilt, but with quiet bitterness. "She doesn't belong in the circles you move in," the man said. "You worked your whole life to build a reputation, to maintain your family's standard, and then you married someone who—" Finn raised his hand sharply. "Don't finish that sentence." The man pressed his lips together, but the meaning lingered. Prejudice, judgment, disapproval dressed as concern. Finn felt his heartbeat thudding heavily in his ears. "So this entire thing," Finn said slowly, "every word you whispered, every warning you gave, it was never about Mia's actions. It was about where she came from." The man didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He simply shrugged. "I didn't want you to make a mistake." Finn let out a breath that shook with anger. Not explosive anger, but deep, restrained fury that came from realizing he had been played. "No," Finn said, voice low and cracked with regret. "You didn't want me to love her." The man remained silent. Finn continued, "You took advantage of my trust. You fed my insecurity. You twisted an innocent moment into something ugly, and I believed you. I let you steer my fears until I destroyed the one person who has only ever loved me honestly." His voice broke on the last word. The man straightened, defensive now. "I didn't force you to do anything. You reacted on your own." Finn's eyes hardened. "That's the part I'll regret for the rest of my life." He took a step back, breathing unevenly. "I almost lost my wife last night," Finn whispered. "She walked into a storm crying because I believed a lie you crafted. And I don't know where she is right now. I don't know if she's safe. I don't know if she'd ever forgive me." Emotion built in his chest until he felt it burning. "You did this," Finn said, "and I let you—" The man opened his mouth to respond, but Finn raised a hand. "This conversation is over. Don't speak on my wife again. Don't speak on my marriage again. Don't speak on my family again. Ever." He turned, gripping Mia's folder tightly, and walked away without looking back. The man called after him, his voice uncertain. "Finn, don't be rash. You're upset." Finn turned his head just enough to speak. "No," he said, voice quiet but full of power. "I'm finally seeing clearly." And with that, he left the hallway, the top floor, the space where the lie had been nurtured. His next steps were already clear. He needed to find Mia. He needed to undo the damage. He needed to fight for the family he almost destroyed. But first, he needed to face the weight of what he had done. Finn didn't go back to his office after confronting the man who had poisoned his marriage. No meeting, no contract, no business obligation mattered right now. Not when Mia was somewhere alone after he pushed her out into the storm. He drove out of the parking garage with urgency pulsing through his veins. His heart beat faster than the windshield wipers that swished across the glass. The storm had passed, leaving the streets washed clean. But Finn felt dirtier than ever. He gripped the steering wheel so tight the leather squeaked under his palms. "Where are you, Mia?" he whispered, his voice unsteady. He checked her favorite places first. The small park near their house, the one where she liked to sit and sketch decor layouts, empty. The lakeside trail where they used to walk on quiet mornings, no sign of her. He even drove past the little cafe she loved, before it became the scene of their heartbreak. The staff recognized him instantly, but they only shook their heads. "No, sir. We haven't seen her today." Finn's stomach dropped. He hated that word, sir. He hated being treated with politeness, while the woman he loved was out there hurting because of him. He kept searching, street after street, block after block, location after location. Nothing. The longer he searched without finding her, the heavier the guilt pressed on his chest, like an anchor he had chained to himself. For the first time in years, Finn felt truly afraid. Not afraid of losing reputation, or business, or status, but afraid of losing Mia. He pulled over at a red light and rested his forehead against the steering wheel. His breathing was shaky, uneven. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice cracking. "I'm so sorry." A car honked behind him when the light turned green, and he quickly straightened, wiping tears from his eyes. Tears he wasn't used to shedding. By noon, after nearly 4 hours of searching, Finn finally forced himself to stop and think clearly. Mia wouldn't go to a random place. She wouldn't walk endlessly in the storm, without purpose. She wouldn't stay somewhere unsafe if she could help it. She was smart, strong, resourceful. Even when broken, where would she go? Finn replayed the last few weeks in his mind. Her routines, her favorite places, the memories she mentioned, the places she felt peace. Then it clicked. There was a small community center on the edge of town, a place Mia often decorated for free during charity events. She loved the warm environment, the quiet hallways, the benches outside under the big oak tree. She once said it felt like a calm spot in the middle of noise. Finn drove there immediately. When he arrived, the parking lot was nearly empty, except for 2 cars. He scanned the area desperately, and then he saw her. Mia sat on a bench under the oak tree, the same tree she loved decorating during holiday events. Her clothes were dry now, but her posture was curled, protective, small. Her hands rested on her belly, thumbs gently smoothing over the fabric of her dress. She looked exhausted, fragile, heartbroken. Finn felt his stomach twist painfully. He stepped out of the car slowly, afraid she might disappear if he moved too fast. Each step toward her felt like walking through heavy mud. Slow, weighed down, filled with dread. When Mia finally noticed him, her body tensed. She didn't stand. She didn't speak. She didn't even turn fully toward him. She simply looked away, as if protecting herself from another blow. Finn swallowed hard. Mia, nothing. He stepped closer. Please don't leave. I'm here to talk, to explain. She lifted a hand slightly, not to push him away physically, but to stop him from coming any nearer. Don't, she murmured, her voice soft but full of pain. Please, don't come closer. Those words hit him harder than any shout could. Mia, I need to tell you what happened, he whispered, desperate. I know the truth now. I know everything. I know he lied. I already knew, she said quietly. Finn froze. His heart stopped. She already knew? Mia took a slow breath, still not facing him. I figured it out last night. Or maybe part of me knew long before that. The way you changed, the way you distanced yourself, the way you let someone else's opinion weigh more than my truth. Finn's eyes burned. Mia, I'm so sorry. I believed something I never should have. I doubted you when you only ever loved me. You didn't just doubt me, she whispered. You threw me out, pregnant, in a storm. Finn flinched. No defense came to his mind. No excuse felt worthy. No apology felt big enough. He lowered himself slowly, kneeling in front of her, not touching her, not leaning toward her, just kneeling so he could meet her at eye level if she allowed him to. Mia, I was wrong. I was manipulated. I let fear guide me instead of trust. I hurt you. I hurt our child. I destroyed the safety of our home. And I will never forgive myself for that. Her jaw trembled. But she didn't look at him. He continued, voice breaking. Please, please let me make this right. Silence hung between them, long, heavy, painful. Mia finally turned her head toward him, not fully. Just enough for Finn to see the heartbreak in her eyes. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She didn't explode. She simply whispered, I don't know if I can speak to you right now. Finn's heart cracked. I understand, he murmured. I'll wait, as long as it takes. And he stayed there, kneeling, drenched in regret, praying she would let him try to rebuild what he had broken. Mia didn't speak again for several minutes. She kept her hands on her belly, breathing slowly, her eyes fixed on the ground. Finn stayed kneeling, afraid that any sudden movement might make her retreat farther into herself. The morning breeze rustled the leaves above them. A few children could be heard laughing faintly from another side of the building, but here, under the oak tree, the world felt still, heavy, quiet in a way that made each breath feel like an effort. Finally, Mia exhaled, long and tired. You said you know the truth now, she murmured, still not fully looking at him. But you don't know everything. Finn frowned slightly. What do you mean? She shifted on the bench, carefully, as though each movement took emotional strength. While you were throwing accusations at me, while you believed someone else over me, I learned something too. Finn's chest tightened. Mia, please tell me. She closed her eyes for a moment before continuing. Last night, after I left the house, I ended up at the community center. I thought if I kept moving, the pain wouldn't crush me, but it did. And when the storm finally calmed, I went inside to dry off. She paused, gathering herself. There was a woman there, one of the volunteers. She recognized me. She asked if something was wrong. I didn't tell her everything, but I told her enough. Finn swallowed hard. The thought of Mia explaining even a portion of her heartbreak to someone else made his guilt twist deeper. She said something that didn't make sense at first, Mia continued. She told me my name had come up recently, that someone from your world, someone with connections, was asking about me, about my business, about my finances, about how much influence I had over you. Finn's brows pulled together. Why would anyone? Then he stopped. The realization hit him like a sudden blow. Mia nodded faintly. Yes. The same man who whispered lies into your ear. Wasn't just trying to hurt me, Finn. She finally met his eyes. He was trying to control you. Finn felt his breath catch. Control me how? Mia looked away again, her voice growing steadier but sadder at the same time. Your company has been preparing that big expansion project, right? The one you didn't talk much about, but kept stressing over? Finn nodded slowly. That volunteer, her cousin works at one of the agencies tied to your project. She overheard something days ago. Someone said that the fastest way to influence a CEO is through the person they love. Finn felt his stomach drop. And that someone, Mia continued softly, was the same man who told you I was being unfaithful. No, Finn whispered, shaking his head in disbelief. He couldn't. But even as he spoke, the truth lined itself up neatly, too neatly. The timing, the pressure, the whispering, the concern that intensified only when Finn hesitated on major decisions. The second lie that had pushed Finn over the edge. Mia watched his expression shift from confusion to horror, to understanding. He didn't just want you to doubt me, Mia said. He wanted you off balance, distracted, emotional, vulnerable. If he could make you believe your marriage was falling apart, he could manipulate your choices at work. He could make you rely on him more. Finn felt physically sick. Mia's voice softened, but the ache inside it was unmistakable. The lie wasn't about me. Not really. I was just the easiest path to your heart. Finn closed his eyes, steadying himself. The man he trusted, the man he considered an advisor, had used his marriage as leverage. Mia, Finn whispered, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have protected you, protected us. She let out a shaky breath. I knew he didn't like me, Finn. He never hid that. But I never thought he'd go this far. She looked at him again, her eyes glistening, not just from sadness, but from exhaustion. The worst part? She added, I didn't even find out by digging. The truth just appeared. Because the lie was never about me. It never needed to make sense. It only needed to break us. Finn felt his throat tighten. He reached out a trembling hand, not to touch her, but to place it on the bench beside hers, giving her space to choose. Mia, please, he said softly, tell me everything you're feeling, even if it hurts. I want to hear it. She watched his hand, close but not touching, then looked up at him with eyes full of broken trust. I feel like I don't know you, she whispered. I feel like you turned into someone I couldn't recognize. I walked into that storm thinking you might chase me, thinking you might come after me before the rain drowned me. But you didn't. Finn bowed his head. I was lost, he murmured. I let someone twist my fear into anger. I didn't stop to think. I didn't breathe. I reacted instead of listening. You didn't just react, Mia said quietly. You believed the worst version of me without asking a single question. Finn winced. She blinked slowly, wiping a tear. But you want to know something strange? As soon as the volunteer told me what she overheard, I wasn't angry first. Finn looked up, confused. I was relieved, Mia said, because for a moment I thought maybe, just maybe, You didn't stop loving me. Maybe you were being pushed by something bigger than us. Finn's breath caught in his throat. That doesn't erase what you did, she added gently, but it explains why your heart changed so suddenly. Why your eyes shifted from the man I loved to someone full of doubt. She placed a hand on her belly, her gesture protective and tender. Our child deserves safety, stability, love that isn't conditional. And I deserve that too. Finn nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. You do. You deserve more than I gave. More than I understood. More than I protected. Mia looked at him, her expression softening for the first time. I don't know what our future looks like yet. I don't know if we can fix this, but I do know the truth now. And that gives me room to breathe. Finn swallowed, his voice shaking. If you'll let me, Mia, I want to rebuild everything I broke. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She simply whispered, let's just start with honesty. For the first time since the storm, Finn felt a small, fragile thread of hope. The wind softened as the sun dipped lower behind the community center, casting long evening shadows across the quiet courtyard. Mia and Finn sat on opposite ends of the same bench, the distance between them small in inches but wide with everything unsaid. Finn wiped his face with the back of his hand, still shaken from everything he had heard. Mia rested both palms on her belly, breathing slowly as the baby shifted beneath her ribs. The world around them felt gentler than the night before, but the hurt between them was still real, still present, still waiting for a verdict. For a moment neither spoke. Then Mia said quietly, there's one last thing we need to talk about. Finn straightened, his chest tightening. Anything. Just tell me. Mia looked down at her hands, tracing small circles over her belly, as though calming both herself and the child inside her. The truth came out. The lie is exposed. But the damage it caused didn't disappear with it. You need to understand that. I do, Finn replied softly. I understand it more than I ever expected to. She turned slightly toward him. Do you? He hesitated. I know I failed you. I know I let fear guide me instead of trust. I know I believed someone who had no place in our marriage. And I know that I broke something. Mia's voice steadied. You didn't just believe him, Finn. You acted on it. That single sentence landed with weight. You sent me out into a storm. Pregnant. Alone. That wasn't just fear. That was a choice. Finn's eyes glistened. And it's the choice I regret. Every second. Silence lingered again. Mia exhaled slowly, her tone thoughtful. When I walked away last night, I wasn't just leaving our house. I was leaving the version of us that could survive without accountability. I needed to know if you understood the depth of what you did. Finn nodded slowly. I understand. And I'm ready to take whatever steps you need, even if it means stepping back. His willingness made her blink. You're prepared for that? If that's the only path that keeps you safe, he whispered, then yes. I won't fight what you choose anymore. Her lips trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the shock of hearing him finally yield instead of defend. She looked out over the parking lot, where a few cars rolled in and out, parents picking up children from evening programs. Ordinary life continued around them, while they sat suspended between past and possibility. Finn, she said gently, I don't want to raise our child in bitterness. I don't want anger to sit between us like a wall. Neither do I, he said immediately. But I can't pretend nothing happened, she added. We need a new beginning. Or no beginning at all. He nodded again, his voice low. Tell me what that looks like. I'll follow your lead. She blinked at him. This version of him, humbled and soft, was the man she had fallen in love with, not the one who had hurt her. Not the one clouded by jealousy and confusion, but the one who laughed beside her at the banquet, held ladders for her, traveled for hours just to hear her opinions on centerpieces. That version still existed, but trust didn't. Not yet. I need time, Mia said finally. Real time. Not a few hours, not a day, not a single apology. I need space to breathe and think and heal. I need to decide if being with you is something my heart can welcome again. Finn lowered his gaze, accepting the pain in her words without protest. I understand. I'm not shutting you out, she continued, but I'm not ready to come home with you either. He nodded. If you need me to leave you alone completely, I will. No, she said softly. I want you involved. I want you at appointments. I want our child to know both parents from the moment they arrive. She paused. But emotionally, I need my own room to stand in for a while. Finn felt a lump rise in his throat, but forced himself to stay steady. I'll respect whatever boundary you set. She studied him, searching for any hint of resistance. There was none. Finn, she said, her voice gentling, you're not a bad man. You made a terrible mistake. A deep one, but people make mistakes when they're weak. It's what they do after the mistake that shows who they truly are. He lifted his eyes slowly. Who do you see right now? Mia swallowed. Someone trying to do better. Someone who finally listened. Someone who learned the truth in the hardest possible way. He breathed a shaky exhale. But trust, she finished, will come back drop by drop. Not all at once. Their eyes held each other for a long, quiet moment. At last, Mia reached for her bag, preparing to rise. Finn immediately stood and extended a hand, not to guide her, but to offer support if she wanted it. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. Not forgiveness, not a reunion, but the first step. He steadied her as she stood, his touch careful, gentle. She didn't pull away. Mia, he murmured. Thank you for letting me stay today. You didn't stay, she corrected softly. You showed up. There's a difference. He nodded once, deeply. She held his eyes one last time. We'll talk again soon. But for now, I choose peace, and I choose whatever leads you there, he whispered. They walked toward the parking lot together. Close, but not touching. Connected, but not yet restored. The road ahead wasn't simple. But for the first time since the storm, it wasn't blocked. It was open because healing isn't loud. It's slow, intentional, honest, and sometimes choosing to rebuild is the bravest choice of all. At the doorway, Mia paused and turned slightly. Finn, yes? She gave a faint, tired smile. Our child deserves a father who thinks before he reacts. A father who trusts the people he loves. If you can be that, then maybe we have a real chance. He nodded, emotion catching in his throat. I will be. I promise. She stepped inside. He watched her until the door closed gently. The storm had ended, but the work had just begun. What would you have done in Mia's place? Would you give Finn another chance? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart and teach the soul.